Why not try to...
You know, I used to really believe that JD Vance was smarter than Donald Trump, but now I'm starting to realize one is just as dumb as the other one. JD Vance sat down for an interview with Kristen Welker, and it was a complete disaster. I mean, I can't think of a way he could have fucked this up more. First, let's start with this. Everything Donald Trump has said about what he was going to do between Russia and Ukraine has never come to fruition. He's been wrong all the time. We really need to get him a hat that says Trump was wrong about everything, because he has been wrong about that war since day one. But JD Vance is typically sent in to kind of clean up the things that Donald Trump has been saying. And he did exactly the opposite of that. So Kristen Welker was asking him, how are you guys going to get them to do anything if you're not imposing any sanctions on them? JD Vance basically said, oh, we've been putting all types of economic pressure on them. And the economic pressure that he named were sanctions that were put on other countries. And someone like Charlie Kirk posted this and said, JD Vance is giving Kristen Welker a lesson on how diplomacy works. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. That is them deflecting from the fact that they've done nothing to put any type of pressure on Russia to do anything.
Where exactly is the pressure on Russia to do anything if you're not right now imposing new sanctions? How do you get them to a place of getting to the table with Zelensky and stopping to drop bombs?
But Kristen, I think that question betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are. The president has applied aggressive economic leverage, for example, the secondary tariffs on India, to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy.
Think about what he said there. Secondary tariffs imposed on another country to hopefully keep Russia from getting rich off of their oil. That has not worked, and that statement is idiotic as hell, and they actually think people believe this shit.
He's tried to make it clear that Russia can be reinvited into the world economy if they stop the killing, but they're going to continue to be isolated if they don't stop the killing. The president has applied more economic pressure to the Russians to stop this war than Biden did in 3 years.
You know,
so the idea that we're not doing anything, we're already doing things right now, and this is how negotiation works. You do something, you talk to the parties, you try to see if there's a meeting of minds. Again, we believe we've already seen some significant concessions from both sides just in the last few weeks. We're going to eventually be successful, or we'll hit a brick wall. And if we hit a brick wall, then we're going to continue this process of negotiation, of applying leverage. This is the energetic diplomacy that's going to bring this war to a close.
So for the record, it wasn't going to be easy as getting Zelensky and Putin in a room together, telling them something and then making the war go away in 24 hours. Let's just make sure we're clear on that. And then he says, you know, we might hit a brick wall. We've hit several brick walls. We've hit so many brick walls. We're back to the typical, we're going to give them 2 more weeks. Another question that she asked was, if Russia is able to keep any of the land that they illegally seized in Ukraine, what is that going to say to everyone else? Is that going to open the door for other countries to invade places, knowing that we're not going to really do anything? We're just going to let them do it. What does it say to our allies who are worried about these things happening? What JD Vance here says is another idiotic response. Like, I'm starting to think they're going to be like, let's not send him out anymore. He's not cleaning up anything Donald Trump says. He's actually making it worse.
The security guarantees, but
Sure.
very quickly, if Russia is allowed to keep any of the territory that it illegally seized, what message does that send to China? Does it give China a green light to invade Taiwan? Does it give Russia a green light to invade other European countries, which is what your European allies are concerned about?
Well, first of all, the Ukrainians are going to ultimately make the determination about where you draw the territorial lines in their own country. But Kristen, this is how wars ultimately get settled. If you go back to World War II, if you go back to World War I, if you go back to every major conflict in human history, they all end with some kind of negotiation.
In none of those wars was anyone forced to give up land that was illegally seized from them. He's trying to rewrite history. And this is not a negotiation. No one should have to negotiate land that was unlawfully taken away from them.
We're actually not active parties in the negotiation. We're effectively mediating. We're trying to mediate the Ukrainians and the Russians to come to some agreement. If the Ukrainians are willing to say something on territory that brings the conflict to the close, we're not going to stop them. We're also not going to force them because it's not our country. We're trying to play a constructive role. The president is trying to play a constructive role to bring peace to the region, but he's not going to force these parties to walk through the door. All he can do is open the door and ask them to negotiate in good faith.
Actually, we've heard many people in the Trump administration say many times that Ukraine would probably have to give up some land. They may not be pressuring them, but they're definitely putting it out there. And for him to say, we're just kind of a mediator here, that's bullshit. Donald Trump has been saying since day one that he was going to get this war taken care of. Now all of a sudden, hey, we're barely even involved in this. We're just a mediator. We might hit a brick wall, but then we'll go back to negotiating. It's a bunch of bullshit. And here's the reason why. Because Russia is stringing Donald Trump along. And I'm happy that Kristen Welker asked him this question, and the answer to this question is yes. Everything he says is dumb because he knows the answer is yes.
Are the Russians stringing President Trump along?
No, not at all, Kristen. I think the Russians have made significant concessions to President Trump for the first time in 3.5 years of this conflict. They've actually been willing to be flexible on some of their core demands. They've talked about what would be necessary to end the war. Of course, they haven't been completely there yet, or the war would be over.
That is the literal definition of stringing you along. Pretending that you're negotiating, pretending you're going to do something. Meanwhile, nothing has happened. He said it himself. If they were actually there, the war would be over. It's not because he's stringing them along. And if you ever wonder who they say these things for, who actually believes this stuff, it is some of the MAGAs and conservatives that I have found on TikTok, like this woman.
Y'all just see how Trump greeted Putin in Alaska? Look at this video. Like, literally had B-2 stealth bombers fly over Putin's head after they landed to start off this meeting in Alaska. The first thing that I thought when I saw this was that Kamala Harris could never. First of all, she wouldn't even be having this meeting. No way Putin would have wanted to sit down with her. He just would have fully tried to take over Ukraine. But A, Trump's actually sitting down with him, having a meeting, trying to negotiate peace talks. But then he has the best illustration of peace through strength to kick off the meeting. Yep, we have that. Remember what we're able to do with those B-2 bombers that no one else in the world has this kind of technology. That's us. That's who you're dealing with. I thought this was genius.
My God, they're so dumb. Listen, during the time we were flying that B-2 bomber over Putin and we were demonstrating our peace through strength, he was literally bombing Ukraine. Before the meeting, during the meeting, and immediately after the meeting, he was still bombing Ukraine. He even bombed a U.S. company in Ukraine. So please tell me, how is that peace through strength actually working out? Period.
Don't want no enemies or ops. Envy in their heart, I tell them stop. Vacation on the yacht.